Hey, welcome back. And check out what I got on my bench. Wow, look at this. Some low fidelity stuff for once, hey? Um, it's an 8-track stereo cartridge player. It's made by Ross. Ooh, we got some repairs to do on this. It's made by Ross, and it's just a player. That's all it does. Is it's got a tape player in it and an amplifier. It's got pretty basic controls: volume, a tone control for highs and lows, I guess, and a balance. Channel selector, a headphone jack. I have to glue that back on, and it's got an adjustment for head tracking. And it's got 4 indicator lights for what track you're listening to. So, luckily I went through my old media bag and I found some 8-tracks, country classics. That's going to be a real hoot. And then I got this. It's a recordable one. I don't know if there's anything on it. I'm going to find out. But first, I don't think I'm going to power this up because it's so bloody old that it probably needs a belt for one thing. And then we'll go through and we'll check everything out. The wood cabinet is kind of rough shape. This side's not bad. The top is pretty gouged up. Yeah, it's not the greatest. The back is got 2 speaker outputs, a left and a right, and then you've got your power cord, and it's got a wooden particle board back that you take screws and it falls down. Rating of AC 117 volts, 60 hertz, 13 volt amps. So it's pretty basic. This is kind of the thing you'd find in a department store, the mid 70s, and believe it or not, you probably paid $100 for it. But check this out. You don't see this very often. Schematic diagram. And it's even got instructions on how to open the cabinet. Take the screws out. So this is going to help me. This is good. Not that we're going to need it, but it's nice to have. It tells you whether the transistors, 2SC, 536. So those are germaniums. You got NPN, PNP in the open stage push-pull. I'm guessing this thing only probably puts out maybe a watt or 2 of power. But hey, it's just enough to fill your room with sound. Okay, well, let's get it open and have a look at the guts. Okay, I got the 4 screws out at the bottom like the thing told me, and then the top just lifts off. And the back panel is just held on by a couple of screws as well, so it all comes apart. Nice mahogany. I'm assuming that's mahogany. They put a lot of effort into building a cabinet. They could put some effort into electronics too. So what do we have? Ooh. We've got a Hammond transformer. Little power supply sitting on its own here. Got a little bridge rectifier and electrolytic cap. 16 volts, 2200 microfarad. That cap's probably garbage. It looks pretty old. There's another cap, 220 microfarad. This belt is from sitting in that one position. There's a big lump here. Still working. The motor's working. Solenoid. I think the next thing to do is power this thing up and see all the electronics is hidden underneath the hidden underneath the drive, the cartridge drive. We'll have to replace the power cord. Look at this. That's an ugly thing. I'll get a new power cord on this. Pretty basic. So, the power on. You can hear that humming. The transformer's powered 100% of the time. There's no power switch. And to activate the motor, you just have to flip this leaf switch here. Oh, it's working. Let's see what we got for voltage here. It's negative and positive. 19 1/4. Okay. Let's check the function of the solenoid. The head's moving up and down. Top, 1 down, 2 down, 3 down, top, 1, 2, 3. 4 different positions. Oh, this is awkward. I'm gonna have to get rid of it. Well, lights are working. It's a good sign. Okay, well, I have to get to the power amplifier and check all the caps. So I might have to do some disassembly here. So I hooked up a pair of my bench speakers to the outputs, and I'm going to give this a shot to see if it works. And just testing the right side makes a lot of noise. I don't hear anything from the left side, so let's try it. A track. Turn the volume down. Hey, check that out.
Feels like a long lost friend. It's good to be back home.
The tracking is cutting in and out, or the left channel. Okay, so we know it works. Right channel is working alright. The left channel is cutting in and out. We're going to have to do something with that. We're going to have to do something with this front panel. We're going to have to clean it up. We're going to have to find a belt and do some lubrication and some cleaning. So I got a kink in this belt from sitting in that one position so long. I don't know if you can see that as it goes around. So we got a little bit of work to do. Disassemble it and check all the caps. Probably replace those power supply caps. Okay, just give you a little update here what I've been doing. Working on this power supply. I replaced the cap. The cap was dead and dry. I found a couple of, or actually I only found one of the silicon diodes. There was a bridge configuration here, and one of the diodes was shorted, and one of the other diodes was open circuit, so it was only operating on 2 of the 4 diodes before. It's a good thing I checked it with my ohm meter too, because you know, it would have thrown me because it was working. So I did is I opted to just get rid of the diode bridge and put it in a regular bridge, and replace the cap, and I put in a bleed resistor just so that this capacitor gets bled down when it's unplugged, because otherwise there's no way to discharge that cap. And I replaced the power cord, got rid of the hardware store plug end, and put on a proper molded plug that's polarized. And now that it's polarized, I have it feeding into a fuse. I added a fuse to this circuit, and I sized it at 3/4 of an amp. I could have sized it at 1 amp. 1 amp works fine, but it took a little longer to blow when I did the test. I'll just show you here. I'll do a test with the shorting out the secondary. There, I blew the fuse. So that's what we want to see. If this diode bridge shorts, we want that fuse to go and protect the circuit and not burn the house down. So it's all good. I think, oh, I was going to measure the voltage of it, but I popped the fuse now, so I'll replace that fuse. I'm getting 19 volts out of this capacitor. I don't know if you were aware before, but when the tape player sits idle with no tape, this power supply is constantly plugged into the wall and on, so there's always 19 volts here. But then we were feeding it onto a 16 volt microfarad, 16 volt 2200 microfarad cap, which is it was overrated for the circuit, or actually underrated for the circuit, I should say. But now I got a 50 volt cap in there, and fused the primary, so power supply is all good now. Okay, I'm back. I did a bit of work to this thing. I'll show you what I did. Like I explained before, I reworked the power supply, removed those 4 diodes. One was shorted, one was open, and 2 were good. So I removed all 4 diodes, replaced it with a bridge rectifier, replaced the cap, and I added a 470k ohm resistor just to bleed off the cap when you unplug the player. And then I isolated the 120 volt power from this side. I moved it over to here to keep it separate from the secondary. Added a fuse just for safety, 3/4 amp fuse, and insulated the connections here just to make it a little more safer. I still don't have a belt for it, but it seems to be working good with it. This old belt, I'll get another belt on order. Gone through, replaced caps in the power amplifier that were the tape amplifier that was underneath this mechanism. You have to remove the chassis and remove the printed circuit board and replace those caps. I lubed the motor and I lubed the capstan. Not that it really did need it, to tell you the truth, but yeah, it's working really good now. Sprayed in some stuff in the pots, some contact cleaner, and that eliminated the intermittent channel on the left side. It seems to work a lot better now. It's not as scratchy anymore. Now there's 2 adjustments on the head mechanism. One's here. Let's see if I can get this in the frame. One's here. This is your azimuth. Or actually, no, this is your head height with regards to the track, and this is your azimuth. This one tilts the head sideways like this. You know, if you adjust it, you adjust this so that the heads are parallel with the track on the tape. So let's just give it a try and see if we can adjust this a bit. So think right about there is where you get the cleanest sound. I'll have to lock that down with some kind of adhesive. This one, there is a tracking knob here, and what I do is I set that to the center, left, right. I set that to the center. Wait for some music. Right there is where you get the best sound out of both channels. It's the brightest. You want the highs to be as crisp as possible. But on this thing, you're not asking for much. So I'll lock these two down with some adhesive, and we'll wrap this up, we'll put the case on, and call her a fix.